Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of season 2 of the Barry Bus Road Trip. It's been a while and there's a good reason for that. I was actually just on a different trip. I went to Vietnam for 3 months and I'll tell those stories a little bit later. But for now, we gotta finish these ones. So if you saw the first road trip series and you remember those ones, you remember the first couple episodes were a little bit boring in comparison to the rest. And that's going to happen again this time. This is where the story actually begins. So I just left my family in Kansas and I was heading towards Missouri to go meet my cousin. On the way, I'd made it to this rest stop and I was sitting there for a little bit when a guy on a motorcycle drives in next to me and he starts talking to me about the van. I was asking him what he was doing, and apparently he was doing the same thing that I was doing. He was traveling across the country, Bob Seger style, and I was like, okay, where do you stay? Are you like living in hotels? He told me that he actually finds spots under trees or under bridges, and that's where he lives. A few nights before, he had been living under this bridge, and he went to bed. He had his gun next to him, and when he woke up, the gun was gone. And he doesn't know how that happened, if someone had just shown up in the middle of the night and only took his gun. The guy loved photography, and I actually got a photo of him on a Polaroid, and I'll see if I can try to find that real quick. Before this guy left, he had told me that he was picking up hitchhikers, and the most interesting hitchhiker that he picked up was a coke dealer. And he realized that this guy was a coke dealer when the guy, as they were driving down the road, started shooting up. And that's when the guy let him off and took off on the rest of his journey, and then I just met him. After I'd left, I beelined it to Missouri to get to Marcus's apartment. When I finally got there, Marcus was like, hey, let's go out and get some food. So we're driving down the road for 2 minutes, and Marcus goes, man, I've got these really nice steaks in the freezer, can't wait to eat those. God, I got just these really nice steaks. And I'm like, do you want to eat those instead? And he goes, yeah. I was like, why are we going out then? He goes, good. I'd only stayed with Marcus a couple of days. We just hung out, caught up for a little bit. And after, I think it was 2 days, I got up and I left. I was headed towards Nashville, Tennessee to pick up my buddy Ian from the airport. If you guys remember Ian, we'd met him on the first road trip and he was very fun and I wanted to see him again. Well, as I'm driving down the road, this bird hits my van and I didn't realize how hard it had hit my van until I stopped. I found this place called Boomville or something like that. It was this huge store that sold a bunch of fireworks. And they had like commemorative decorative boxes and shit like that. But when I stopped off, I checked my grill and this dead bird was jammed in there. So I go inside this store and I'm looking around and I found this box that was very beautiful. And I decided to buy it. I actually looked around for quite a while to find the perfect box. And I decided I was going to keep my weed in here. So I'm driving down the road, I get to this bridge, and Google Maps says, welcome to Illinois. As I get off the bridge, it says, welcome to Kentucky. Oh, goddamn, that was fast. Everything changed instantly. I had been in roaming fields of corn and millet, and then all of a sudden I'm in rolling hills, these big valleys with a bunch of beautiful houses. Like, the forest was right there. Kentucky was just astounding. I actually stopped off at this little welcome rest area, and it was beautiful. So I am here in West Kentucky. And I was realizing as I was running down the street that this place is kind of beautiful. I couldn't believe how every single house looked nice. So then I head to this rest stop and they got a picnic area out here. It all looks kind of nice, pretty average. That's the rest area. That's the rest area. Are you kidding me? Welcome to Kentucky, right? I mean, yeah, it's a welcome center, so of course it's got to look a little nice, but I've never seen a welcome center look like this before. This place is gorgeous, and so I wanted to take myself a stop and look around. Whitehaven. Check it out. As I'm driving down the road, another bird flew into my van and killed itself. That is 2 birds in one day, and I'm not proud of this record. So it's about 9 o'clock at night and I stop off at this little rest area. There were a bunch of big trucks around, and as I was laying there, I realized these truckers keep their trucks on all night, and I could not figure out why they would do that. I'm sitting there listening to this truck right next to me just purr all night, and in the morning I woke up and I knocked on the guy's truck and I was like, hey, why are you keeping your truck on all night? The guy told me that it only burns about a gallon of gas per hour, and he's doing it for the AC because it's so hot. I mean, I'm sitting there drenching my shirt and pouring ice water on me from my cooler, and these guys actually have full-on goddamn AC, so I mean, that makes sense. As I was sleeping that night, something weird happened. There I am, cozy, laying in bed, full asleep, when all of a sudden my stereo comes on full blast. The key wasn't even in the ignition. I have no idea why it just turned on, so I grabbed my key, threw it in the ignition, did a half turn, and turned it back off, and it turned off completely. I went back to bed, and about 9 o'clock in the morning, it blasted again. It turned back on and woke me up. See, I'm driving down the freeway, so I'm keeping my speakers on like full blast. So in the middle of the night, this thing's just turning on. I don't understand. The next morning, I woke up due to the heat. It gets hot very quickly, and I rode myself into Nashville. So I am here in Nashville, Tennessee, trying to get to the heart of the city. I was actually in the heart in my van, but they wanted me to pay $50 to park. I was like, yeah, screw that. So I went about 15 minutes away to a Walmart in like, I don't know, some like Garden City or something. And I'm driving my electric bike. I had myself some lunch, and this lady walked up to me and told me that if I go down to this parking garage, like in the like sub-city, then they'll only charge me like $15 to park. And so I grabbed my van, I went down in there, I grabbed my electric bike, which I brought with me, and I just rode around town. You guys want to see a whore? Nashville was gorgeous. The women were gorgeous. The music, there was music all over the place. As I was riding around on my electric bike, there were people who would stop me and ask me about it. They're like, where'd you rent that? And I was like, no, I own this. And they thought that was kind of cool. Welcome, everybody. I am on the shitty part of town. I'm on the shitty side of town. You know how I know? This is a parking spot. This right here. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. They're building. Actually, that building I'd really like to see. I'm gonna go there. As I was riding around with my bike, I accidentally found the party district in Nashville. There was beer everywhere. Everyone was drinking and dancing and partying. There were beautiful women all over the place. There were live bands, live music in the bars. It was gorgeous. I was really glad that I had my electric bike. It was kind of amazing how small the city becomes when you have this vehicle you can just drive around in. And I'm also not wasting gas with the van. I loved that so much. It was about 5 o'clock when I realized that I need to get back on the road so I can get to the airport and pick up my buddy Ian. Technically, I had to pick him up the next day, but I had to pick him up in Knoxville, so I still had a while to go. That evening, I decided I was going to go to a bar and meet some people. So I stopped off at this little place. I think it was called like Blue Buffalo Feathers or something like that. I don't know. It was some like weird Knoxville name. And I bought myself an IPA. It was $2 a pint. That was insane. I sat down for a little bit, and a group of people waved me over, and I got to join their group. When I sat down with this group, it was about maybe 6 or 7 40-year-old people, you know. So they were regulars at this bar, regular-ish. They knew the town, and I got to know them a little bit. There was this one guy who was talking about the different foods that he eats. He would like just straight up eat raw cabbage and raw vegetables because what he said was it bolstered his sex drive and made him a better lover. So that's why he would do that. There was this other woman who, she was about 50 years old, and she had this boyfriend he was younger, an Indian guy. And I was telling her about what I was doing the road trip, and she was such a dick. Like, she looks over at her boyfriend and she's like, so what have you done with your life? Have you done something this hardcore? Like, this is the real deal right here. And what have you done? And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, hang on, what have you done with your life? And apparently the dude literally traveled from India, you know, his home country, to come live here and date this woman. I don't know if he did it to date her, but like, this is how it ended up. There was a point though where the guy started talking about religion and politics, and it was all so very pragmatic. Like, nobody really cared. We were all just talking about it, except the guy next to me, the guy who just straight up eats cabbage like an apple, and he's like kicking me in the knee, and he's like, change the fucking conversation. At this one point, there was this guy who got a little too drunk, and I think he got upset because this lady was praising me up so much for doing what I was doing with this road trip, because there was a point where I had to jump over this gate to go to my van to grab some shit and walk back. And when I had jumped over the fence, the guy got really upset at me, and he started yelling at me. And everyone was just like, "Shut up, Curtis! Like, he's such a dick!" Like, and it was just kind of funny. At one point, the whole group followed me out to my van, and I showed them the inside. I grabbed a Polaroid picture of them as well, as I wanted to grab Polaroid pictures of everyone that I met on the road trip. And I decided that since I had drank a couple beers, I just took the van around the back of the bar, and I parked it there, and that's where I went to bed. The next morning, I woke up about 10 a.m., a little hungover and still kind of high from the night before, and I drove down towards this little park. The park was close enough to the airport, and I figured I could just kind of hang out there until Ian had landed. So I'm hanging out at this park, and I notice it's this big dog park, and I go down towards the water, and it just something felt off about it, so I turn and I see these girls walking their dog, and I was like, "Hey, is there any reason I shouldn't jump in here?" And they're like, "Yeah, a lot of goose poop and a lot of fishing hooks just sitting around." And I'm like, "Okay, that's a bad combination. Is there anywhere I can go to go swimming?" Because here's the thing, I hadn't had a shower in probably like 4 or 5 days. It's like $14 per shower at a Love's, and at this point in time, I didn't buy a gym membership to Planet Fitness so I could shower for myself. So I had been showering at my friends' and family's houses. I hadn't actually had any time. So I wanted to jump in some water, is the point. They told me about this spot called Mead's Quarry, which is about 30 minutes from the airport, so I got into my van and I drove towards it. When I got there, I just went down to the water and I jumped in. The water was so warm, it was so nice. I just sat there swimming, floating, smiling, just having myself a good time. I was probably there for maybe an hour. This lake that I was in, or this quarry, was about maybe the size of a football field. If you go across, there's like the sheer cliff face. Absolutely gorgeous. And there came a point, there's this group of girls. I was like, "Hey, what time is it?" And they said it was 2:30. I had to pick up Ian at 3, so it was time for me to go. I got to the airport and I waited for Ian for about 40 minutes. He finally gets ready, gets into my van, and we start heading towards Smoky Mountain Outdoors. See, in Hartford, Tennessee, there's a rafting tour called Smoky Mountain Outdoors. My buddy Ian was a tour guide, so he would take groups of people down the river, and it was like, they said level 4, level 5 rapids, but really, it was like level 4. Maybe 4, like maybe. But you say level 5 to like make it a better experience for the people who are buying it. I decided that I was going to stay there with Ian out in the middle of the woods for a couple weeks and just van life with him. He also had his van, and when we got there, he took me through a tour of his van, and I can show you that right now. All right, Ian, so what's going on? What are we doing here today?
I am going to... You've asked me twice, what are we doing here?
Well, what are we doing? Lay your bed down. What are we doing?
I've got my cool gaming setup here I wanted to share with the class. Nice big old curved monitor. Let's see if I can pop it out. It is a bit of a pain to take out.
Right. You might want to replace those with hydraulics someday.
That was the thought, right? Or I'm just going to get rid of it completely and be a normal human being and not have a giant ViewSonic curved monitor.
I don't know. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I've got this pull-out keyboard right here. So it's got the Black Widow Razer Chroma. I originally had planned to have my laptop sit over here in this corner, and I had a channel that would run all the way back here. You can kind of see it right there. Mm-hmm. It runs underneath here and into this storage section under here. I've got an outlet under there that powers this monitor, and I just pulled the HDMI out right here. You see how much of a pain this is. That's why I try, if I ever set it up, I try to do it on days I have 2 days off. And I'm just going to set my laptop up right here, and it provides me a lovely little gaming setup.
So as you guys can see over here, he's got his laptop over on the table. He's got his custom mouse mat right over here, which is awesome. And then he's got his computer. What happened here?
Huh? Oh, it wants me to update to Windows 11.
Ah, okay.
No.
Right.
Just no.
Oh, that's a really nice YouTube page, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Isn't that the Green Machine? I think this guy named Ian owns that. I've seen that channel.
I've heard his name's Ian. I've heard his name Shern.
I really like that channel.
Mr. Worm.
Yeah. He's friends with BulletBarry, isn't he?
I think so.
That's right.
Yeah, he knows BulletBarry. BulletBarry. I mean, let's be honest, kind of mid, but
yeah, BulletBarry kind of sucks.
Yeah, no. As soon as he started doing his van life stuff.
Yeah, screw that guy.
Yeah, but yeah, no. I'll sit right here in game. If I'm in like really hardcore gaming mode, let me show you. This is what I do. Bang. Now I'm in hench gamer position.
Awesome.
But doesn't it look so cool?
That is cool. Everyone's gonna love this, man.
It's so nice. I have been dealing with it / learning to love it at the same time. And then if I'm ever just chilling, you know, if I want to just watch a movie, I do have to put that back in, but like fold it down, sit on the couch, look out to the side. It's nice. Before we'd gotten to the camp, we'd stopped in for food, but once we got there, we just kind of settled in. I put my van right next to Ian's, and then Ian started walking around just talking to everybody, and I started walking around with him, getting to know everybody. I wanted to be sociable, and you know, I was going to be staying there for a little bit, so I wanted them to know me. I walked up to these dorms that were right up next to where I'd parked, and I just sat in and I started talking with these kids. We were smoking weed together. We were talking about perspectives on life and whatever. And apparently, so it was this guy named Wyatt and his girlfriend who had come to visit him. And his girlfriend was a therapist or something like that. And she really liked my take on life through psychedelic revelation and made her want to take mushrooms, which I thought was kind of cool. At about 1 a.m., I was woken up by my stereo blasting again, and I realized it was time to fix this because this had happened about 4 or 5 times that night, and I had no idea what was going on. The next morning, I was going to go on my first rafting trip, but I'm going to get to that next time. Like I said before, this is where the story actually starts. I had to get to this point, but SMO is where things really take off, and I can't wait to tell these stories, but I will have to do that next time. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I will see you that next time.